want to welcome everyone to this webinar brought to you by Exponential on a crucial topic during these times. It's called Leading from Home, how ministry, marriage, and family intersect in a pandemic. And isn't that where we're living right now, in that intersection between ministry, marriage, and family in the unique and unprecedented time of coronavirus. I'm Larry Wackemeyer, and I am a pastor in Long Beach, California, and I serve as the Director of Equipping and Spiritual Engagement for Exponential. And so we're just really thankful that you are logging on right now to be a part of this really important webinar. And we've got two fantastic resourcers. They happen to be married, and yet each one of them individually are just a fountain of wisdom and experience. And I'm just so thrilled to be able to be hosting this time with Brian and Amy Bloy. And we're going to be talking about this reality that we're living in right now and how it's affected us and how it's affecting us. And I just want to compliment you that are logging on for your investment in your marriage and your family. It's always interesting and a bit disheartening to me that that pastors and church leaders will run to ministry skill seminars so quickly and yet so hesitantly go to marriage, family teaching, and skill building and seminars. So you're doing the right thing, because God's word says marriage and family come first, and then ministry flows out of that. And so I just want to say thank you. And I got to tell you, we are here because we care about you. We love you as church leaders, and we want to just be a resource to you in this vital area that we're all living in. I mean, this pandemic has thrown ministry, marriage, and family together in such a unique way. Early on in this pandemic, I read a meme that said, it's been a blessing being home with my wife for the past few weeks. I've caught up on everything I've done wrong in the last 15 years. I hope that hasn't been your experience. But there was another one that the husband speaking to his wife. I told my wife how thankful I was to have someone I enjoyed to be quarantined with. And she said, must be nice. Now, I am hoping that's not your experience. I know that has not been Brian and Amy's experience. I'm living in LA County, still under quarantine orders with my wife and my two adult daughters, all four of us working from home right now. So it's Zoom Central around here. So how are we navigating that, and how can you better navigate that? And I'm just really blessed, like I said, to introduce to you Brian and Amy Bloy. Many of you probably know them. So I just want to share about them before they launch into the teaching that they have for us. But as they get ready to do that, I want you to just to put in the Q&A, the question and answer spot there, what your questions are, what you're needing resourcing on, because these guys are experts in the area of marriage and family. They really are. They're friends of Deb and mine, and we have taught with them at Exponential, and they're great resources. So even now, begin to put your questions into that Q&A box. Let me tell you about Brian and Amy and get them going here. In 1997, Brian and Amy started Westridge Church in Northwest Atlanta, and Brian and Amy are passionate about starting new churches and investing in the lives of church planters and pastors. They really give themselves to that. And since 1998, Westridge Church has helped plant over 170 churches in the U.S. and many more internationally. In addition, they've written a book that's really important. I don't know if you guys have that right there, but you can show that to us. It's a Uh, I love this title. Take a look at that book. And and they cross out not, it's personal, surviving and thriving on the journey of church planting. And so you'll want to pick that book up. Brian is also the president and co-founder of Engage Burkina, an organization devoted to planting churches, providing clean water, improving education, and helping the physically disabled in Burkina Faso, Africa. And then in 2015, they started Engage Churches in order to encourage, equip, and connect church planting couples. And so this is really a passion for them. Brian loves spending time with Amy, which is a good thing,
Yep.
and their two sons, Taylor and Zach, and an English lab named Gibson. And Brian enjoys running, paddleboarding, and baseball. And Amy's just equally talented. She's working on another book right now. I won't say anything about that, but she's working on another book that I'm excited to see her write. But Amy planted Westridge Church with Brian and co-authored the book they just showed you. It's personal. And she's passionate about helping ministry families and especially about encouraging and connecting ministry wives. And she too, of course, is a great mom to her sons, Taylor and Zach. And so Brian and Amy, great to have you resourcing us today. And I'm just gonna turn it over to you, and just here's what's gonna happen. They're gonna teach us for a while, and as you're putting in your questions to them, then we're gonna stop and take your questions, and they're gonna resource around your questions. And so as those questions come up, make sure you share those, because we can't answer them unless you put them in. So welcome, Brian and Amy.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thanks, Larry. It's good to see you again, even though it's on a video screen, and just excited to be with all of the folks who are tuning in. And as you mentioned, this is a topic that's passionate. We're passionate about, and we're, like most people, we're at home. Georgia's a little bit more open than where you are in California, but we have our two young adult sons home with us right now, and we joke a bit that we tell people we're empty nesters, but we're really not, because they just keep coming back home, and now they're home because of this pandemic. So, yep. But we really enjoyed it, and I will say this to kind of jump into this conversation. I don't know about the folks who are watching this, but every pastor that I talk to, including myself, we are working harder than we've ever worked before. We started Westridge almost 23 years ago, and this reminds me a lot of the early days of planting a church, where it was like boundaries have just gone out the door, rhythms are no longer there, and so the uniqueness of this time, we're working more hours than ever to stay connected to people. So much of what we're doing is on a Zoom screen, whatever platform you're using. And there's, Larry, you and I were talking before we went on about Zoom fatigue, which is a very real thing. And then, honestly, it's like our boundaries are gone, that she and I set up for years. We're having to readjust and look at, what's the rhythm? What's a new rhythm for us? Because really that's just kind of gone out the door. And we have our two young adult sons are home. And so, they're sitting in, the living room going, "Hey, Dad, it's like 10:30. Want to watch a movie?" And I'm like, "Oh," and then, it's just, even looking at how do we find vacation time right now? Because we want to stay present with our people. We want to stay connected. We don't want to give appearances that we're leaving, that we're bailing. But here's the deal. I mean, chances are we may be, depending on where you live, right in the middle of this. I mean, I think, what has it been, 9-10 weeks we've been in it. And for us here in Georgia, we're not even probably serious until maybe another 9-10 weeks until we open the doors of our church. And so, so for us right now, I'll just say this: we're emotionally exhausted of trying to figure out, how do we put a new rhythm in place? How do we, in the midst of all this uncertainty? And so what I want to talk about in just a little portion that I'm going to talk about, and then Amy's going to add some great stuff to this, is just how do you build rest in Sabbath into your life and into your family right now? because I don't know about the rest of everyone else, but we're struggling to find it. We're struggling to find downtime and just true rest where we can recharge. And, especially when you're stuck at home, what does that look like? And so one of the things that Amy and I talked about yesterday was that we've said this for years, but we have to look at, I think, this right now as well, is that this is a marathon, not a sprint, but everything that's going on, it feels like a sprint. It just feels like we have to run as hard as we possibly can because, it's going to end tomorrow. But I think for all of us, the reality of this is, and I know, Larry, for you being in LA County, I mean, that could be 3 months. For us, it could be, 9 weeks. I have no idea. But I think we have to approach this whole idea of rest and being healthy as a marathon right now rather than a sprint. And we have to get some healthy rhythms built back into our life, into our family, if we're going to come out of this healthy. And I think that's one of the things that I want to challenge everybody to do, and is to set a goal to come out of this healthy, to come out of this, to look at this as a great opportunity to really maybe readjust, recalibrate, maybe create some things that weren't there before. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a moment, but we all know the word Sabbath. We know it's a biblical word, but most of us are not really good at it. And I would say pastors and their families, we're probably, maybe some of the most guilty people, especially in American culture, before this pandemic and even certainly now. But the word Sabbath, with the Hebrew word Shabbat, it actually means to cease. It means to stop. It means to stop working, stop worrying, just stop. And it's more than just setting aside a day off. It really is trying to create a state of being, with God. We look at the life of Jesus and we see that, that 3-year period that we know about where he was doing active ministry, and he was working into not just his daily schedule, but his weekly schedule, a day off, a day of rest, moments where he was leaving the disciples, moments where he would walk away from people who were not healed. He would heal some and not heal others, but he would go away and he would just, leave so that he could get some downtime to spend time with his Father and just to slow down and stop. So I just want to give some practical thoughts about just what that might look like right now in all of our worlds, especially in the midst of this pandemic. And so if you're taking any notes, I'm just going to give you 4 words. And the first one is just stop. Take one day every week and just shut things down. I'm a big proponent of for me, I get up early in the morning, so I have at least an hour every day where it's just me by myself. I have to have it. My personality is such that I have to have that. And Amy, hers is a little different than mine, but she has to have it as well. And, but just, so for us, and this is, I'm going to be honest, Larry, it's been a little tougher having our sons home. Yeah, right. But for us, still that day is, it used to be Monday, now it's Friday, is just shut down email, shut down texting, shut down Zoom calls, disconnect from social media, turn off staff calls. We have this little thing called MS Teams that our staff uses, and I just put do not disturb on that. Just leave me alone. Because, I think when this pandemic started and we were all just blown and going for 4 weeks straight. It was like nonstop. And I literally came to the end of myself and I said, I've got to get back into a rhythm of personal health, of rest. She and I need to get into a rhythm of being able to spend time together away from our boys, so that she and I can connect. And as much as we love spending time with them, as much as it's a gift for them to be home. And I know so many people watching this have little kids. So that's a whole new, it's a different season that they're in right now. But we have to stop. We have to stop. There has to be a moment in our week where we go, I'm putting this phone down. I'm turning the text off. I'm not responding to them. I'm turning off email, and I'm asking everybody just to leave me alone for right now, unless there's just an emergency, unless somebody passes away or, that kind of thing. The second word is rest. What do I do at that time? You do whatever delights you and whatever replenishes you. whatever fills you up. For us, it could be going to the gym, it could be going for a run, it could be going to, depending on where you live, you may not be able to go to the gyms, but we we're just finding places where we can run. It could just be, for me, it's hanging out with her. It may just be, walking through a park if your parks are open right now. We've had to be really creative about just trying to find, places for us to just replenish. And Pete Scazzaro, he said, here's what you need to rest from. He said, you need to rest from work. You need to rest from physical exhaustion. You need to rest from hurriedness. You need to rest from multitasking. You need to rest from competition. You need to rest from worry, rest from decision making, rest from catching up on errands, maybe rest from talking. I've done more talking probably in the last 9 weeks than I've done in my life. I'm talked out. And then rest from technology and machines. And so what do you do? What do you do? What fills you? You do what fills you. And I think it's important to know what drains you, know what fills you. Amy and I do an activity when we're doing a marriage conference about what fills you, what drains you. And I think it's important for you to know emotionally what fills your tank and what drains your tank. And for she and I, she's my life partner in filling my emotional tank. And I'm the same with her. And so she knows what drains me. I know what drains her. And so what I want to try to do for her during this season is try to partner with her and help create space in her world so that her emotional tank can be filled up. Because I know it's being drained right now. She knows my emotional tank is being drained right now. So she's creating space for me, opportunities to help to fill up my emotional tank right now.
So we're going through a lot of drive-throughs right now is what he's trying to say.
Yes. We are helping our local businesses by going through drive-through. But and this is not new. I mean, the Israelites have been doing this for centuries. And one of the things that I think we have an opportunity to do right now, Larry, is I think that we have an opportunity to teach our kids at home to rest. Because our kids don't know how to rest, and they get it from us. They watch us. They feel like they're supposed to be busy all the time. And before this started, we were, most people that I know, especially when your kids are younger, you're chasing them everywhere. You're picking them up from everything. They're in every sport. They're, travel this, travel that, the whole deal. And now we're literally being forced to rest. And it's almost like we don't know what to do at that time. And so I think there has to be a day where we turn off video games. We even maybe turn the TV off. We turn off this, and we just go, hey, we're just going to sit still. And we're just going to rest. I know some parents are going, I don't know how to do that. Listen, Jewish families have been doing this for centuries. If you go to Israel right now, they're still in the rhythm of their week. From 6 o'clock on Thursday to 6 o'clock on Friday, they're resting. And their kids have learned how to do that. And I just feel like right now is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to tell our kids it's okay to be still. It's okay to just not have to have something going on all the time. And, again, one of the biggest, competitions to that is this, because even if there's a commercial on TV, what do? We pick this up. If we're sitting at a light in our car, we pick this up. I mean, even though we shouldn't, it's okay for us just to have space in our mind, just to dream, to think, to be with God, to just, pray, or to just not do anything. Then the third word is delight. How do we Sabbath? We delight. When God finished his creation, it says in Genesis 1:31 that he proclaimed that it was good. What does that mean? It means he delighted over it. That Hebrew phrase communicates that he had a sense of joy, that he had a sense of completion, that there was a sense of playfulness almost about it. And I think during this time of rest, we're called to enjoy and delight in God's creation and in its gifts. And so I think right now, just some practical ideas is just for whatever day that we say we're going to rest, let's say for us, it's Friday. And this is something that honestly, she and I are still working on. And I'm actually throwing some new ideas out as I'm saying this to her. But just to slow down
Mhm.
and enjoy your food.
Mhm.
You know, our family, if you just saw, could see how fast we can finish a meal, it's almost sinful. But that's because it's been part of, part of the rhythm. But, on that day of rest, slow down and enjoy your food. Take time to enjoy nature. Look at the trees that God's put around you. Look at the flowers and the plants. Take a moment and slow down and enjoy people a little bit more. Maybe walk more slowly than you normally do. Slow down your pace. Maybe contemplate. Take time to just think. While we're resting, we need to be worshiping. We need to be drawing closer to God. We need to be thinking about his love and how much he loves us, how, his goodness, his attributes. I know everybody kind of maybe connects differently with God. For some people, it's solitude. For some people, it's worship music. That's probably the best way. I put in my little earbuds and I just put in my favorite worship music. For some people, it's scripture. Others, it's nature. But if you're really going to learn to build rest into the rhythm of your life, especially right now, you have to be strategic about it. You have to be purposeful about it. You have to plan for it. The Jewish people, even right now to this day, they have a big Sabbath meal. And so in order to do that, they have to go out beforehand and buy all of the preparations for that. They light candles together, they read Psalms, they have a time of prayer together, and they prepare for all of that, as they go through this time. So I would say we have to be very strategic about it. So the four things that I would say we have to do is we've got to stop. We have to rest. We have to delight. And then I didn't say this was number 4, but I want to go back and say, I said the word, but the fourth thing is we've got to contemplate. We've got to contemplate. While we're resting, we need to take time and worship and use that time every single week. And I would say every single day you need to have that time, but just every single week, there needs to be a time where we contemplate and we lean into our relationship with Jesus and we just worship and we delight in him. And we draw closer to him. But in order to do all of that, we have to be very strategic and we have to schedule and plan for it. But I want to tell you something. The way that I look at this whole thing, and then I'll turn this over to Amy, is I really believe that this time that God's given us, even though there's a lot of hurting people, there's a lot of people that are sick, there's people that are dying, and I don't want to even for a moment overlook that. It's tragic. There's so much going on, but we can look at this as an opportunity as well, and really this time as a gift to recalibrate, to maybe push the reset button and to build some healthier rhythms than maybe before we started, and to really pull a Sabbath time into our time. So I don't know if you want me to transition over to Amy, or you want to
That's
stop here, Larry?
great, Brian. Yeah, great stuff, and a lot to push into that. And I'm sure that those of you who are listening, there's some questions you probably want to ask Brian and Amy about that. So just put that in the Q&A feature right there, and we'd love to get to those after they're done teaching us. But thanks, Brian. I was taking notes. I don't know whether you noticed, but thank you for that, because I was taking notes, and I'm anxious to hear, Amy, your thoughts, your heart. Go ahead and share with us. Yeah.
All right. Well, certainly I want to address some of the ladies who are in ministry. And it's unique for some of us girls, because some of us are probably cooking more than ever before, maybe doing more laundry than you've ever done. And some of you have your children home all the time, your little ones, and maybe you're used to, a career outside of ministry or be involved in ministry, and you feel like you're at home a lot right now, taking care of the kids, and it's just such an interesting time. And like Brian was talking about, needing to incorporate that rest and realizing that this is a marathon. We didn't really think it was going to be a marathon when it started, but it's turning out to be one. And so we're kind of having to recalibrate the way we think about that. And certainly, like he was saying, it's a challenge, but our family's just trying to think a little bit differently. Just about how to rest and how to do the things that are important, not just the things that seem urgent. But I don't know how many of you out there have had a birthday in quarantine, but April 13th was my birthday, and we all thought, oh no, are we gonna have birthdays in quarantine? What's that even gonna look like? So just finding new normals and realizing that it was all good. We came out okay, and we had a great day, and we just felt loved and celebrated. And so for those of you who are having birthdays or anniversaries, and then we experienced Mother's Day, and
Easter.
it's just, Easter was just huge, to do that online. And it's like God's given us opportunities, to be creative and to realize that things are just a little bit quieter, and they're not, the huge celebration like maybe we thought. But actually, I think looking back, we're all enjoying the rest time for sure. But so I just want to address something quickly for the ladies. I was thinking the other day that God has given us as women a very unique ability to be tone setters in our home. And it's like a responsibility that we have, but it's also such an honor. And since we're home so much, I think thinking about the tones that we set in our home during this quarantine time is so important. But it's something really kind of cool to consider, that the first 5 minutes sets the tone. And so what do I mean by that? But pretty much the first 5 minutes, like when you wake up in the morning and your family's really getting going in the morning, or maybe the first 5 minutes in the afternoon, if your kids are out running around playing, or, they're all running to the dinner table, or the first 5 minutes pretty much of anything, right, sets the tone. And we as women are so influential in setting the tone in our house, that I just want to encourage those of you who are listening that God's given you that as such an ability and such an honor, that we as women get to do that. And so like, it's our great challenge that we get to set the tone for peace and just joy and fun in your house, just letting people feel like they're accepted, that our home can be fun. And so much of that centers around the mom, centers around the woman of the home. So I just want to encourage you to be tone setters that are just really aware of that role, that we are tone setters, and that we can plan and think ahead, like how are we going to set a fun tone. And even like this week, there have been times when I find myself like almost being like in a bad mood, actually. And I'm trying to have to pull myself up from that and go, God, help me to jump right out of that. I think there is this, one of our sons was explaining it this way. There's like this underlying almost anxiety, especially at the beginning of this. Like, are we going to get sick? Are we, what about the people that we love? Are we going to be able to take care of people or minister to people? Are we going to run out of things that we need? Almost like we need to hoard. Or as we were all chilling and smiling, there was an underlying anxiety. And it's so important that we can set the tone as women, just a tone of peace, of looking to God to fill us with everything that we need, to help us out, that He is unchanging in the midst of lots of change and uncertainty right now. And so what a joy, right, that we as women get to be tone setters for our home. So I was just going to throw a few crazy things out there. We were trying to think of fun stuff that we could do, when all of this first started. And so our boys, like Brian mentioned, are home and they're young adults. But our youngest, Zach, just graduated from Liberty University last week here at home. And then our oldest plays baseball. And so he's waiting for baseball to start. He's 25 and the youngest is going to be 22 in a few weeks. And so, just having young adults thinking, what can we do to make things exciting and different and not boring? And so I just kind of made a list of some crazy things that we've done, but we've been doing a lot of fire pits, roasting marshmallows. We did this one crazy thing where we just decided we would be creative, and we had a character night. We said, tonight you are invited to character night, and you have to dress up as whatever, anything you want to be. So our boys were like old Saturday Night Live characters, and Brian was John Wayne, and I was Jenny from Forrest Gump. And we made a crazy video, and we just had this big dinner like it was a big deal, and it wasn't, but it was, because we made it a big deal, right? And it was just so fun. And I think our boys are going to look back on that, and they'll remember that always, that we did fun stuff. Just some thoughts for some of you out there who might be thinking, how much longer is this going to last? And all of our creative juices are just like dried right up. We had a home movie night. That was so fun, just to look back. Awesome. Like, we laughed so hard, and we actually cried just looking back at God's faithfulness. We got to, watch like when our kids were born and them growing up. It was such a family bonding time. as a mom, I've just tried to do silly things like see how many candies you can fit in the jar, and then just put a note card on the counter, guess how many candies are in here, and there's a prize for the person that gets it right.
I don't remember getting my prize. I think I won that.
Yes, you got the venti very berry hibiscus when
Ah,
Starbucks
that's
opened.
right. That's
We
right.
found one Starbucks that was open, and we're like, yes, the very berry hibiscus. So
We
yeah,
saved
that was
that.
your prize.
We've been saving a lot of money with Starbucks being closed. I want you to know that.
Exactly. So I just want to encourage you to think of crazy things. We went to Walmart getting our groceries and got a $29 badminton set and put it in the backyard, and we just laughed. Like I literally laughed until I could hardly breathe because I'm just so terrible at badminton. But our boys had so much fun and just throwing things together. They don't have to be fancy. They don't have to be expensive. Just connecting and different. Just to change things up a bit and just have fun together as a family. It's so important.
I love that. I love that.
So that's what we've got to share with you today, Larry.
That's great stuff, and I can relate because as I mentioned, we've got 2 adult daughters at home working here, and so I think God can use this time, like you said, Brian. I couldn't agree more. I'm so saddened by the tragedy of this time,
Mm-hmm.
and yet there is an hopefully an unrepeatable opportunity that we have during this time to really invest it in our marriages and in our families in unique ways that and I just love your practical ideas of what you're doing with your family to make it a memory making time, like you said, that they will remember this not just for the uniqueness of quarantine, but for the uniqueness of that kind of family time together. And we're doing some of those things as well. And again, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A feature there, because we'd love to just address those. But in our house, we're having some fun time with our girls. We've been able to get out and bike ride together as a family almost every day. The uniqueness of my schedule, I'm with you, Brian. I've worked harder than I ever have, I think, in ministry. And part of that has just been the learning curve for me. I was so ignorant about a lot of this stuff. So it's just been a huge learning curve along with the activity. But at the same time, there's been a flexibility to my schedule that has allowed us to go bike riding for exercise. And so there are a few coffee shops that are open. So we'll ride 4 miles, drink a coffee, and come back, kind of thing. And so that's been a lot of fun for us. And one of our youngest girl, our adopted girl, we adopted her as a teenager. She's turning 30 in a few days. And a little more than a few days, I guess, a couple of weeks now. And so for the 30 days of May, every night we're doing a birthday celebration. My other daughter created a birthday chain, and Deb and I and our daughter Lindsay each took 10 of the chain links and wrote something special, a special message to Angelica, our youngest daughter.
I love it.
So every night she undoes a chain, and there's a little gift and a little card. Not expensive, because 30 days wouldn't break the bank, but because she was so looking forward to this 30th birthday and had all these plans, and now none of those are going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's just creating this unique memory that wouldn't have happened any other time. So
yeah. I think we really have an opportunity right now to be creative, and we're everybody that's watching this. I mean, most have either planted a church or a pastor in church together as a family, and we spend so much of our creative juices trying to think of ministry things, and yet I think we have this great opportunity to think of really creative, outside of the box things, even for our family, and make some tremendous memories right now. But also, the interesting thing is, for us, we haven't watched those old home movies for years. I mean, we had to dig through boxes, and I thought to myself, why have we not watched these? Why is it taking us so long? Well, it's because we're so busy, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Heather asked a question, Amy, directed to you. What are personal ideas for yourself to be able to stay positive and keep that happy tone that you were talking about set for your family? What are just some personal ideas for you, Amy, that help you? Every time I'm with you, and I've been with you a few times, you are just so up and positive anyway. But just some ideas that you have for Heather and for us?
Okay, that's a great question. I think one of the biggest ways that that I can try to stay positive is to not compare myself to everybody else. Because the more that we're on social media and we see even things like this, you can see, okay, I comb my hair and I put some makeup on for this. Doesn't mean it's always fixed and I'm not always wearing makeup, right? But we look at other people and we think, oh, they must be smiling and happy and accomplishing these great things every day. And I just have to, I think it's a struggle for most of us women to not compare ourselves to other people. But I have to think I'm not going to compare myself, and I'm going to have reasonable expectations for me. Because I tend to be really driven, and then I can compare myself to what it looks like he accomplished today or what it looks like somebody online accomplished today. And then I could think, gosh, I must be a loser. I must be not, unable to withstand that pace. And so I just kind of have to have expectations that I think are realistic for myself, and then allow myself to be proud of me when I do those things, even if it's just loving my family well today. If that's all I accomplish, just like walking with Jesus and loving my family, that's enough. And I think so many of us as women, we don't feel like we're enough. And that's something that I've struggled with for my whole life. And I just have to say, we are enough because of Jesus and what he's done. And if we as ladies can stop comparing ourselves and just do what God's called us to do, even if it's in our own home with our own kids, just loving Jesus and your man and your kids. And that's enough. It really is. And trying to be satisfied in what he's called us to do and what we've accomplished. And then when we lay our head down on our pillow at night, say, I've done enough and God's happy about me.
Amen.
Yeah. And Larry, I've watched her just through this time, we talked about needing space. Everybody, needs to have some space to take care of themselves, And so for me, I have to go for a run. I mean, it's just the way that I'm wired. It's a way that, I get rid of the stress in my head. She runs with me sometimes, runs by herself, but for her, she goes and takes a bath. I don't really want to take a bath.
I don't really want to run, but yeah, I'm having to.
So for her, but I mean, last night I watched a movie with our boys and she said, I'm going to go take a bath. And I thought that is because I know when she does what fills her tank and she can read and just, not have pressure of being on.
Yep.
And that's tough. And so for us, we have to work together to give each other, create space for the other person.
Yeah.
In the midst of this.
I think we need to be able to clock out sometimes, and we need to raise our kids to allow people to clock out. Like, kitchen's closed and I'm done. I'm going to go do something for me. And that's healthy. Like, that's a really good thing. And if we don't teach our kids that by example, then when they get married, they won't know that people are allowed to clock out and rest sometimes.
I love that. Me time and space and managing expectations differently during this time than we typically do, and celebrating small victories. Those are things that I heard both of you say in that response, and those are really good. Tyler asked a question here, Brian and Amy, of the changes which you've made with being in this lockdown state. Which do you plan to keep once we return to a more familiar pace of life?
That's a great question.
That is a great question. I don't know what Amy would say. I said a moment ago, and honestly, just preparing for this time here today, I was convicted, just even with the day off that I take, is even with that, I want to slow down a little bit more, enjoy food, enjoy the conversation a little bit more, think a little bit more closely about what people are saying, enjoy people a little bit more, just be a little bit more present. Because the hard thing is even though we're in our houses, it's not necessarily meaning that we're present. I'll walk into a room and I just want you to know, because I'm going to say this in front of her so she doesn't have to say it. I'm as guilty as everyone else of just, everybody walk in the room, everybody's got their head down in the phone. And even though we're together a lot more, doesn't mean that we're actually present. And so one of the things to answer Tyler's question is just to slow down a little bit, enjoy my food a little bit more, enjoy, what's outside a little bit more, but to be just a little bit more present in conversations, to be a little bit more in tune with, what's actually happening in the room. When Amy or one of the boys tells me a story, I don't go, "Hey, what did you just say again?" But I'm actually present. And that's always been a challenge for me. I don't know if you know much about I'm an Enneagram 7. So I have to work on being present and just being, there and not always thinking of things to do. So.
That's great. Amy, what would you add to that?
So we started in my family, my mom and my dad and my 2 sisters and my brother, we started Zoom calling together about every week or two. And that has been the sweetest thing. I thought, why have we not done that all along? I think we'll keep that up in some sort of a schedule. We don't see each other very often, and that's been a treasure for me.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think that question that Tyler asked is one that we should be asking the Lord, as we contemplate, Lord, are there changes that this has opened up space for that I really need to implement? And yeah, those are good. Here's another question. Have your adult children had down days, and how are you helping them through it? I have young adult children that have had some hard days.
How about if I tell about Zach real fast?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really good
Such a good question. So our youngest son, Zach, who just graduated from college last week, was on spring break when all of this started. It was his senior year with all of his friends from all over the country, and they had saved and planned for their big senior spring break on the beaches in South Florida. And they had over a week planned and paid for. And I guess on day 3, the police came and closed the beaches down. And within 2 hours, Zach was at the airport. Brian was finding him a flight home. At that point, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know if there would be gas stations open. We didn't know if they could find food. And so everybody just all went home. And that was the hardest thing. I think just watching him stand in our kitchen and saying, what just happened here? He was in shock. I've been on the beach all day, and then everything changed, and I'm on a plane, and now I'm at home, and I'll never see some of my friends ever again. That was bizarre. So I think just allowing people to grieve over their losses has been healthy to acknowledge, to allow people to have space to struggle and to figure things out in their head. Us not saying, oh, it's going to be fine, it's not a big deal, but saying this is a huge deal and we're sick about it with you. And yet at the same time, pointing them to the faithfulness of God, the fact that he's writing a story. And this is a part of that story. And then for our son, Taylor, who plays baseball, just saying God is writing a story. We're right in the middle of that story right now, but he's faithful, and we're just going to trust him with whatever he's writing right now.
Yeah. I mean, Amy mentioned our youngest son, he didn't just lose spring break. He lost graduation. We were just up in Virginia moving the rest of his stuff out of his apartment and bringing it home. And so, there was not a sense of completion there, really, like most people have experienced in the past of, turning a tassel. And our oldest son is probably, I don't want to say probably, but there's a good chance he's going to lose an entire season, and he's 25 years old. So it's challenging when, for our guys, but I will say the thing that I feel like outside of Amy creating all this fun stuff that we've been doing, that they've enjoyed, is we have had a lot of nights where we'll just sit in the living room and go, guys, let's be honest with each other. How are you feeling right now? Because both of them are struggling in their own way. And, I don't want to say too much about all that, but I just think the conversations that we've had have allowed us to also say to them, I just want you to know I'm struggling. I don't know when to open the church back up. Right. I don't know, long-term how this is going to impact us financially. There's a lot of question marks that are there that I don't have answers for. And Larry, I know that you will agree with us. We're all walking through times we've never walked through before. And so I think the other part of this is, outside of just being open and honest and us sharing our own uncertainties and down feelings that we're having, and opening up the door for them to be honest with us, is just, I think, helping them to realize that, like for our older son, every person who plays baseball where he is almost in the same boat.
You're not alone.
Yeah, you're not alone. Every college student just lost their graduation. Every high school student. Everybody is feeling this at some level. We're all experiencing the grief of a closure, a loss. It's like we're all in this together. And so for what I've challenged our boys with is, what's the opportunity that's in front of you right now? Because we know that God's in this. He didn't cause it, but he allowed it.
Right.
And so if he's in it, and Amy said he's in the story, which we talk about that he's in the story, he's writing a chapter. What does he want us to learn from this? Yeah. And my challenge with my adult sons has been, come out of this better than when you went into it. Mm-hmm. And what does that look like? Yeah. It's the challenge for me personally. I want to come out of this a better man, a better husband than when we came into it. Mm-hmm. Well, I have to do some strategic things for that to happen.
Yeah. Brian was talking about the Enneagram. So I'm a 2, which is like the helper giver, like making up fun things for our family to do to keep us all excited. And so one thing that I've been learning about when it comes to the Enneagram, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but we've been listening to some like short snippets of Enneagram in quarantine and crisis and how they react. One thing I learned about,
never listened to outside.
Exactly. So we've gone around, we've all taken the test, and we've been very interested in that. It's very interesting to see the different personalities and how they react in a crisis situation. But one thing I've learned about myself that especially relates to the question of having young adults in your home, for me, is that our oldest is an introvert, and he doesn't necessarily want to play family game night and family movie night every night or all the time. There are, especially for young adults, I think that they just need to be given the permission just to be in your room, just to be away from everybody. Sometimes the best thing that they can do is get away from everyone. Yeah. And that's okay. Like, it's good. We can celebrate everyone's differences. And I'm trying as a mom now, having young adults back in my house, like they've lived in apartments on their own, they've cooked for themselves, and now all of a sudden it's like they're my little boys, and I'm trying to just let them be men and not micromanage them, just love on them and be here. Yeah. Just love on them and be here and cook, and that's mostly it. Just let them be men and adults.
And it's okay to be down. It's okay to be down sometimes. It's okay to grieve. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's really important, because as Christians, too often we feel guilty if we feel down and sad, and we sometimes place that on our kids, like, hey, you shouldn't be sad. Jesus reigns. Like, yeah, he reigns, but you read the Psalms.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really powerful what you're saying. And that just creating that space to allow them to be who they are in this moment. Our adopted daughter is very introverted, strong, a challenger on the Enneagram, actually, but an introvert. And our other daughter is just gregarious and extroverted. And so allowing them to be who they are and process this reality, because both of them have some keen disappointment, partly tied up in the reality that we're going through. But just being available, and saying, I'm here, I'm listening, and sometimes they want to talk and sometimes they don't, and that's okay.
Yep.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
very, very powerful. And Brian, I'll just come back to something you said to your boys and to yourself, and I think this might be a great place to kind of wrap this up. And if you guys would pray over us, or if there's anything else you want to share, feel free. But you said you want your boys and you want yourselves to come out of this better than you went into it. And I tweeted something today that just that the Lord convicted me of this morning, is that the most important thing I do during this time is not what I do, but who I become.
Right.
And I just want the Lord to use this time in my life, in our girls' lives, in our marriage, to advance us. And isn't that His promise? That's the Romans 8:28 great promise of who God is and what He does in the midst of all of our trials, that He can advance us if we focus in on His love, and maintain that calling towards His purpose. So any last thoughts, and then would you, one or both of you, pray for us?
Yeah. I would just say that nobody's written the book on how to get, lead your family healthy through a pandemic yet, because we're all in the middle of it. I haven't seen the book yet. And so we're all writing our own little books, our own little stories, our own little chapters. And, we're going to have days where, we look at that day and go, man, that was not a good day. And everything changes so quickly, and depending on what state you live in, and even it doesn't matter what state you live in. It's like, what was true yesterday is not true today, and what you heard yesterday is not the reality of today. And so, I think we just have to give each other grace during this time.
Yeah, that's good.
I would just echo something that Amy said a moment ago to pastors. Don't spend your time comparing your church and what other churches are trying to do right now, what they're trying to accomplish. Just, do all you can do. And at the end of the day, trust God. There's a lot of people who have just gotten their churches launched in January, and here they find themselves in the midst of something they did not expect. And they're concerned about whether they're going to survive this. And I just, I don't know what the future is going to hold, but I do know that God's with you, and he's, if you're still rolling right now, he's been carrying you. Yeah. And so just lean into Him, and you don't need to try to compete with all the big churches that are out there and try to feed everybody in the community, or to have a food drive that stuff will wear you out. All you can do is what you know to do, and take the pressure off yourself. And at the end of the day, my big fear for all of us, especially pastors and their families, is that you come out of this completely exhausted and worn out and no good to start when things do open up. So please take some time, work on your healthiness, use this as an opportunity, prioritize rest and fun, and just drawing closer to each other, and self-care, soul care, so that when the doors do open back up and we all come back, we can come back ready to minister and not need a 3-month sabbatical. Yeah. So let me pray for us. Lord, I thank you for every person that is on this, that's joined us on this call. And I can't see them. I don't know their names, but they're here. And I pray Father, for every couple, every lady, every man, mom, every dad, every young adult that's in our home, every little boy or little girl that's in our home, every student. Lord, we're all coming into this in different seasons. There's grandparents probably that are watching this as well, and being able to connect with their grandkids. Lord, And so we're walking through a season, Lord, that none of us have ever experienced. And we're wondering if we're doing enough. We're wondering if we're doing this well. Lord, would you just take that burden off of us today? And we place our burdens and our cares and our worries and our anxieties on you. And Father, my prayer and Amy's prayer together is that we'll come out of this better than when we walked in. And I pray for everybody watching this. And I thank you so much for Larry and for Brooks and for their friendship. Lord, may we all, at the end of the day, when this is whatever a new reality looks like, and whatever, if there is a finish line to this, Lord, may we look back and go, I grew from this. I'm a better person. I'm closer to Jesus. My marriage is better. My kids are healthier. And Lord, I pray that you'll give us the tools and the insight to help make that happen. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Brian and Amy, so much. There are a couple questions there. I don't know if you have one-word answers for those. What's your Enneagram resource? What's the one book you'd recommend on soul care management?
I'll tell you this. Give me that orange book over there. I will tell you this. We're not big Enneagram people, but I do know Ian Morgan Crum has a lot of stuff out there about Richard. I can't remember his name. He's written a book on the Enneagram that's a lot of people are using. There's a lot of really bringing the spiritual into it.
Ian,
so
you said Ian.
Well, Ian Morgan Crum, and then there's another guy named Richard. But I will tell you this. I'm reading this book right now, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I know that sounds like a crazy title. Have you read this, Larry?
No, but I've read a review of it, and my wife just finished reading it, so it's up next. That's why I'm laughing.
I'm just going to tell you this book. I'm taking our staff through this. This book, I know the title. Don't let it be misleading during the season. As far as Sabbath and solitude and just all of the rhythm, this book is just wrecking me as it relates to soul care. And man, as far as just individually, I just can't recommend this more.
That's great. Stop, rest, delight, and contemplate.
Yep.
And that spoke to me. And so I promise you, I'm going to read that book. And so thank you, Brian and Amy. Great wisdom that you shared with us today. And thank you, everyone, for being on our exponential webinar. If you're not on our Facebook page, sign up for that, because we'll just keep feeding that with all kinds of resourcing opportunities for you. We love you. God bless you. And stay strong in Jesus. And we'll see you soon. Thanks, Brian and Amy.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
Bye-bye.